The association that I had with Prabhupada when he was on the planet, okay. Mainly, I'm going out and distributing his books every single day. You could always feel his presence because, you know, in between people that we were distributing to, we'd always pray very intensely, please Prabhupada, send me somebody sincere. And, you know, you get a lot of blessings from distributing books. The first time that I saw Prabhupada, his physical presence, was in Miami. In 1975, he came, and he stayed for a few days. And I made garlands for him that he wore. I have photos of him wearing the garlands that I made. And it was wonderful because the temple in Miami, the weather is just like Bombay, the vegetation is like Bombay, you know, a lot of palm trees. And we had big banyan trees. We were renting a house then, the temple, big, huge banyan trees out in the yard. So Prabhupada would speak at night under the banyan trees. It was very mystical, you know, location, very nice. Balmy weather, you know. So it was very beautiful seeing Prabhupada there. And I remember when he first, well, we greeted him at the airport, and then when he first walked in the temple, he saw these two paintings. One was of himself, and one was of his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada. So Prabhupada's eyes got big, and he said, oh, who has done these? So we told him it was Kirtamati, a devotee that lived there. And this is the one of Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur's, your Guru Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Swami, has taken for the cover for the book. That one, because I told him, Maharaj, this is such a nice, this is like my favorite picture in the world of Srila Bhaktivedanta. So he used that for the cover of the book. So Prabhupada was there, and I got Diksha that year, 75, I think later that month or something, got Diksha. And then they wanted to give me second initiation, but I said, this was 1975, I requested, can I just wait until because I knew we were going to India next year, you know, for the Gaur Purnima festival in 1976. I said, is it okay if I wait so I can get it directly from Prabhupada? You know, and some of the devotees told me, well, what if you left your body before then? You know, you wouldn't have Gayatri. And, you know, so they asked our GBC, who at the time was Satsvarup Maharaj. He said, you know, should we just give her, you know, now, or can she wait until then to get it directly from Prabhupada? He goes, well, this request is maybe a little sentimental, but it's okay to be sentimental sometimes, so she can wait until she goes to India to get it. So we went to India in 1976. And thanks to Krishna, this was the year that Prabhupada was very healthy. He was feeling good. He gave lecture every single day for 6 weeks, every day, you know. And we were with him in many, many venues, many places in India. We started out in Sri Mayapur. And then we went to Calcutta, to the temple at Albert Road, and we were with Prabhupada there. Then we went to Delhi, and there was a big pandal for 5 days. So we were with Prabhupada every day for 5 days at the pandal. And also went with Prabhupada to Life Member House there in Delhi, where he was preaching. At the pandal, we would show Hare Krishna film, and Prabhupada would speak in the evening, and we would be distributing books all day, like that. And then at the end of that, they said, okay, now, they said, now you can go on traveling Sankirtan with Prabhupada. We're going to go So we went, we had a bus. There were like 22 devotees, and Prabhupada was ahead of us in his car. Something like the car that's downstairs. The
ambassador.
The ambassador. This is the Bombay ambassador. They had the Delhi ambassador too. So Prabhupada was ahead of us in the car, and then we had 22 devotees on the bus. And we went on traveling Sankirtan with Prabhupada. And we went to, first we went to Modi Nagar. It's a town in between Delhi and Agra. And in Modi Nagar, they had the whole, the town brass band came out in their uniforms, and they played Hare Krishna on the brass band, you know. And Prabhupada came out of his vehicle, and he was like, you know, being the conductor and conducting them, you know, like that. And they treated the devotees very nicely. We had a place to stay. There was a huge mandir there. And Prabhupada actually spoke about Mr. Modi also, because he would say that he didn't have much education, but here he's built this whole, he's got the whole town, thousands of people are employed by him. He had a big factory there, you know, and he built a huge mandir, huge temple. Whereas he would contrast that with, but this man, he's got the PhD, and now he's riding the bike selling something from his bicycle, you know. So after Modi Nagar, we went to Aligarh. And I remember in Aligarh, Prabhupada was staying in a house, and we would go for Mangalartik, we would go to the roof of the house, and we'd be running around chanting the Mangalartik. And it was very beautiful. Then from there, we went to Vrindavan, and that's where they had, it was one of the largest, maybe it was the largest initiation ceremony while Prabhupada was on the planet. That's where your Guru Maharaj got his, he also got his Brahman the same time that I did, because he was in, but there were a lot of devotees, maybe 100, I don't know how many exactly in this, you know, in this yagya. And I had to wait about 4 or 5 days to get the Gayatri mantra. So, because they were doing it in batches, you know, because Prabhupada was personally giving it to us from in his quarters. So the day I went, then there were 4 ladies with me, and I had made, while I was on Sankirtan in America, every day at the lunch break, I had made some shoes for Prabhupada, like the shoes he's wearing in this picture, the wooden shoes that have a peg coming out between the toes like that. So I had carved out of wood and gold leafed the edges, and the peg coming out, I had carved like a lotus flower and put a jewel in it, and they were very pretty, and then rubbed sandalwood oil on to finish it up. They were very beautiful, and I made a purple velvet bag and with Srila Prabhupada's name on it to keep the shoes in. So I had brought a gift for him, you know, to give him, and some flowers also I got from where we were staying. So he gave us Gayatri mantra. There were 5 ladies and myself, and 4 ladies and me, so 5 of us together. And then they all left, but I hadn't given him his gift, so I gave him his gift, and so I was alone in the room with him. And I had brought some flowers, and I put the flowers down first, and he didn't say anything to me, but I gave him, you know, I set these flowers, here's some flowers for you, Prabhupada. And I had given him hibiscus. You know hibiscus flowers? Hibiscus are really meant to offer to, to offer to Mahadev, you know, Uma and Mahadev. And I didn't know that. But, and later on, just not much later, one of the boys, brahmacharis, brought Prabhupada a hibiscus, or a few hibiscus, and Prabhupada said, but these you cannot offer to the spiritual master. And the devotee said, oh, well, what can I do with them then, Prabhupada? So Prabhupada took 2 flowers and he put one behind each ear, you know, and he smiled real big. So I didn't realize, you know, that you're not supposed to offer this, but so he didn't say anything to me. But I gave him the bag of, with his shoes. I said, I made this for you, Srila Prabhupada. So he took the shoe out and he held it up. And he said, oh, thank you. Thank you very much, you know. And then the next day when I went and I saw that he had put them up on the mantle where I don't know if they still have, you know, they have the small Krishna and Balaram deities that they kept in Prabhupada's quarters. Maybe they're still there, I'm not 100% sure even. Probably, yeah. And they were on the mantle for a while. Maybe they still are, I'm not sure where they have them now. But he had them up on the mantle, the shoes that I made. And then we used to go, of course, and clean his quarters every day. He'd go out for his walk at 6:15, and we'd rush in there, and everybody had their particular place. You know, some people cleaned the kitchen, some people cleaned his bedroom, some the bathroom. I had his darshan room. So every day I got his Mahaprasad garland that he had worn the day before, which is one of the perks of cleaning his room, ecstatic, you know. And so this is what I did. And you've seen Prabhupada's items that he kept. He had like a compact with a mirror, and it had Krishna and Balaram carved on the cover. And he had so many different things, a little tilak container, silver, and a little pot for water. And like this, so many items. And we would see Prabhupada on the morning walks there in India. And then, pardon me?
Sorry, you were saying something.
Yeah, the last time that I saw Prabhupada's physical presence on the planet would have been in the same year, 76, but at Rath Yatra in New York. It was the last Rath Yatra that Prabhupada ever attended. And it was the first Rath Yatra in New York. And, you know, like Prabhupada said, it's in the biggest street. It was down Fifth Avenue, which is in New York City. It's the biggest street. The biggest street in the biggest city, in the biggest country in the world, you know. So it was right down Fifth Avenue. And it was like, you know, it was something mystical, the way that we even got the permit, because they weren't giving any permits for any groups to hold Rath Yatra anymore, to meet, not Rath Yatra, to hold any festival, to close down Fifth Avenue. Because when you have a festival, you have to close the traffic off, and there's for miles, you know, it's like it takes a lot of manpower. They have to have police there, and they weren't giving any more permits. So somehow our god brother, Toshan Krishna, went in there to see the you know, the city manager of New York, of Manhattan. And he told him, first of all, he couldn't even, you know, the secretary didn't want to let him in. Somehow he got in to see the man. And he told him, we have this festival, and it's going to be Rath Yatra. And he just explained it to him. And the man said, it was just like something mystical. The man said, you know, this is impossible. We can't give out any more permits. He said, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to let you do it. And he signed off the paper. Krishna. So we have there was Prabhupada, and so we started out and coming down Fifth Avenue, and Prabhupada wasn't there at the beginning, and all of a sudden I was just chanting in front of Subhadra Devi's chariot. They had 3 chariots, very big chariots. And all of a sudden, I just looked down the, it was chariots behind me, Subhadra Devi. I looked over just down the side street, and I saw Prabhupada's walking. So Prabhupada walked down, and Prabhupada got right up on Subhadra Devi's chariot. And also Jayananda Prabhu, this was the very last Rath Yatra that he did, because he was sick and he passed away. Even before Prabhupada, he passed. So, so it was a wonderful, you know, amazing experience. And that was the last time that I saw Prabhupada in his physical manifestation. Because as we mentioned, we always have to remember that even Prabhupada said, my Guru Maharaj never left me, not even for a moment. So Prabhupada is always with us. That's the way I feel. So now what I do is when I travel, like I'll go to England once or twice a year, or in America, if I travel, I tell stories about Prabhupada. Not just my stories, but I get some of the, you know, more interesting stories that try to find something that people may not have heard before, you know. So I have a couple stories here that I'd like to say. We have a god brother. He passed away already, but his name was Hayagriva, and he was a little famous. And he was like a real, larger than life character, as they say. He had been a college or university professor. So he's used to, standing it up in front of the students and making, a presentation. So one day, he stood up in front of Srila Prabhupada and all the devotees, and he made his dramatic announcement. What was that announcement? He said, "I am going to renounce the world." And Prabhupada just looked at him and said, "The world does not belong to you, therefore you cannot renounce it." Huh?
Did you make the statement open?
Yeah. Yeah, he said, "I am going to renounce the world." And he's very dramatic about it, so it's not just a little humble. "I'm going to renounce the world." And Prabhupada immediately, like you just put a pin in the balloon and all the air comes out. "The world does not belong to you, therefore you cannot renounce it." And Prabhupada said, "Everything belongs to Krishna, not us. Knowing that is renunciation." Later, Prabhupada continued, "You see, we do not renounce anything. Renouncing presupposes that you own it. But we don't own anything. Krishna owns everything. Just as Krishna steals butter, he steals the hearts of the devotees. He can do this because they are already his. So he is not stealing or cheating. We are stealing or cheating when we enjoy separately from Krishna." Then I'll tell a couple more stories. I have a god sister. Her name is Purnamasi. And she was living in Los Angeles in 1972 or 1973. So Prabhupada was visiting, and he mentioned in the morning class, just as a side note, simple. He said, "Man can live alone on milk, coconuts, and what did he say? And bananas." He said, "Man can live alone on milk, coconut, and bananas. So if you have all that, you could live." And so she thought she was making his lunch every day with some other devotees. They were cooking Rajaboga and giving, making a nice everything for Prabhupada. Rice, dal, chapati, pakora, so many things, salad, chutneys. But she thought when she was making the lunch, Prabhupada said that. I know what I'll do. I'll make him a salad with banana, coconut, and milk, and whipped cream. So she made Prabhupada this whipped cream, coconut, and banana salad. So they served Prabhupada that day, everything, the full Rajaboga, and as usual. And then she presented this bowl. And Prabhupada didn't eat any of the usual fare that day. He just had 3 bowls of her coconut, banana, and whipped cream salad. And then the same lady, her son was born in 1973. So they waited until he was several weeks old to give him his name because they wanted Prabhupada to name him, So they were just calling him Das, for a long time. So then Srila Prabhupada telegrammed from Bhubaneswar. By the way, we are filming this in Juhu. This is Prabhupada's quarters, part of his quarters. That's why the bell is there, sorry. And this is magical Juhu. Prabhupada called it a royal palace. He loved his quarters here. And this is the place where the temple has 24 domes. So it's the most beautiful temple in the world. So Prabhupada telegrammed them from Bhubaneswar. And he gave the name. He said, "Call your baby Nanda Nanda." So then, about a year or two later, Prabhupada stopped in LA on his way to Mexico. And he told Shrutakirti, who was his servant at the time, "Call Nanda Kumar." Nanda Kumar is Purnamasi's husband. So they had that baby, Nanda Nanda. So he said, "Call Nanda Kumar, please." So he did. And then Prabhupada gave each of them a $50 bill. And, And they wouldn't take it. Well, actually, who wouldn't take it? Nanda Kumar wouldn't take it. He said, no, Prabhupada, I cannot take from you. You are my spiritual master. You are my guru, and I should only serve you. And Prabhupada said, this is for your sons. I can give this to them, but not to you, because you are my disciples, and you must give everything to me. So they took the $50 each for their babies. I thought I would tell this story because nobody has really heard this story before. This is the story how everybody knows how Srila Prabhupada was living at John Lennon's estate, Tittenhurst, for, they were there for a month or two. And John Lennon was kind enough to give all the devotees a place to live, while they were waiting for the temple to be finished at Berry Place. So, so this is the story of how John Lennon got blessed at the time of his death, which I think is a very poignant and incredible thing. Krishna arranged this. Krishna arranged for devotees to be there at the time of his death. So very interesting. So this was December 8th, 1980. The New York Temple was on West 55th Street in Manhattan. And two devotees lived at that temple, Bakula and Sarottama. And they had their daughter, Shringar, was born that morning, but she was born in the temple. So by the afternoon, she had developed kind of a cough, so they thought, we better take this baby to the hospital, because, never can tell. So they asked another devotee, Kesiha, who now lives in Alachua, where I live. They said, Kesiha, can you please drive us to the ER, the emergency room, at Roosevelt Hospital? Now, Roosevelt Hospital is up on West 59th Street, and the temple is on 55th Street. So at the hospital, they were taken into this room, and the lady doctor was examining the baby, when all of a sudden, she was called out of the room. There was apparently like a big emergency, and she was called out of the room. So Sarottama Das followed her. He wanted to see, well, what is this emergency? So he followed her too. And of course, at that time, this was 1980. The devotees, they always just dressed with their shaved head, and the dhoti and kurta. They didn't, would wear karmi clothes to go places in America so much, because they were living in the temple, So, so what it was, Yoko Ono, John Lennon's wife, was walking alongside a stretcher, and John Lennon was laying on it, face down, lying on his stomach. He had been shot. Somebody assassinated him. They shot him outside of his apartments. And his apartments were up on West 72nd Street. So what it means is that, the hospital's right in the middle. The temple's here, hospital's here, John Lennon's place was there. So that's why he went to that same hospital. And when Yoko Ono saw Sarottama, she said, John, the Hare Krishnas are here. And then like a moment later, he expired. So, I just take that. I really feel very strongly that was Krishna's direct mercy on him to hear the holy names at the time of his death, So that's what happened there. I always like this story. And this story you don't hear too much either, because even the person who happened to this, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami told us this story. Because this is a story that happened to Achyutananda Prabhu. And when you ask Achyutananda these days, even he hardly remembers this. So it's a good thing that it's somebody remembers that it happened. In 1970, in Calcutta, Achyutananda was debating with a gentleman about who was more important. They were having this debate. Who's more important, Lord Chaitanya or Lord Sri Krishna? So they're having like kind of a debate, you can imagine somebody saying, well, it's, Lord Chaitanya, Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya, or somebody, it's Lord Krishna, because, Ishvara Parama Krishna, you don't know what they were saying, like that. They're having a debate. Finally, Srila Prabhupada came in the room, and they presented the question to him, and Prabhupada's answer, he answered in one word. He said, Radha. They were in 1976. Srila Prabhupada was in Chandigarh. He was there because of Mr. P.L. Shetty, who we're going to speak of in a few minutes when we talk about the Juhu memories. But there was a question from the audience. And this is the man's question. It wasn't really a question, he's kind of stating something, but this was his question. Sai Baba is the Lord himself. What is your opinion of this? So that was his question. Can you imagine? He's asking Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada's answer. Prabhupada's always so more than perfect in his answers, Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada. We are rascals. So we do not know all these things. We know only that Krishna is the Lord. We are not very scholarly, Prabhupada said. We know only Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Only Krishna is the Lord, and all the rest are cheaters. That was Prabhupada's answer. Amazing. I was here 5 years, from 90 to 95, and of course Prabhupada was not in his manifest form on the planet anymore, but when I got here, I was very eager to find out the devotees that were very crucial or essential to Prabhupada's mission and helped him that still live here. For example, Srimati Sumathi Morarji, Mr. P.L. Shetty, they were still alive here. So I said, I want to interview these people. I want to, speak with them and meet them and interview them. When I was here, I taught for a year at our school, Bhaktivedanta Swami Mission School. And I also, and this is Srila Prabhupada's quarters we were filming in, and I was also in charge of his kitchen here for 3 years. But one thing that I did, we have in Bombay, we had at that time, so many years ago, 25,000 life members. I have no idea what the number is now, it must be way up there. But we had a lot of life members, and they asked me to do a publication called Hare Krishna Today. So I was the managing editor of this publication. And in this publication, I wanted to write up about these devotees, so that I needed to therefore interview them so I could make an article about the devotees, Sumathi Morarji and P.L. Shetty, And so, as we mentioned last night, I was very happy to see recently that His Holiness Giriraj Swami has written nice, explained the history of Juhu very fully and nicely. And even more happy, elated to see that Lokanath Swami, His Holiness Lokanath Swami's new book is out, Bombay is My Office. So that even goes in more detail, more elaborate detail. And I have a few stories that are in neither book, so a little bit of fine-tune or a little addition, So I would like to say, from interviewing Mr. P.L. Shetty, as just to refresh the memory, as we know, Mr. P.L. Shetty is the one who, when the municipal authorities, under the direction of Mr. Nair, were ripping down and going to destroy the temple, it was Mr. P.L. Shetty who came in because he was a contractor and he had access to the materials, the concrete panels and all the building materials, which were difficult to get, but he had 40 workers at the snap of his fingers. So he was the one that came in and assigned his workers to rebuild, so that at the end and he was also the one who said, when the thugs, or the gundas, when they came and said, don't even try to rebuild, don't attempt it, because we'll be there and we'll destroy it again. And he said, he said, we'll send 50 gundas to destroy it. He said, 50, you should bring 100. Bring 150. I have 250 bullets, and I'll be there with my guns. He had a rifle and he had a gun. And they were there. They brought the weapons. His son, Brij Mohan, who was there last night at our pandal, I don't know if you saw him. He looks just like Mr. Shetty. So this is Mr. Shetty, just to give a little introduction. So, this first story was 1973, early, just when Mr. Shetty was moving into his Juhu house. Something happened to his health. The nerves on his neck were badly entangled. And the doctor, he was seeing a physician, the doctor was afraid that he could die. He said you could die at any moment, if you're not careful the way you walk, etc., because the nerves are all entangled. So what they did is they put like a lumbar belt on him so he couldn't move so much. And he said, we don't even have, in Bombay now, we don't even have a doctor that can deal with this, Shetty. You're going to have to go to London. So Mr. Shetty had purchased his ticket to London for the operation. And then they found out that Srila Prabhupada was in Bombay. So they found out where he was. Srila Prabhupada came out, gave Mr. Shetty his garland. And Srila Prabhupada was supposed to go that day to Valkeshwar. He canceled that. And instead he went to Goregaon, where Mr. Shetty was just temporarily living while they waited for his house to be built here. And Prabhupada just looked at Shetty and he said, Shetty, life and death are not in the hands of these doctors. Remove that belt, remove this thing that you're wearing. And Mr. Because the doctor had told him very strictly, you have to do this. And his son, Brij Mohan, had tears in his eyes. Mrs. Shetty was crying. And Brij Mohan said to Prabhupada, Swamiji, what are you doing? It is against the medical advice. Please. Because Mr. Shetty, he couldn't even lift a cup of tea. That's how sick he was with his hands. He couldn't even lift a cup of tea, And Prabhupada continued. Prabhupada said, there is no need of going to London. Go home, get a massage on your neck. And Prabhupada prescribed a Ayurvedic medication called Yogendra Ras. And he told him there's only one shop where you can get it in its pure form. It's in Devi. He told him where to go, He said, you will be all right. Nothing will happen to you. So Mr. Shetty he believed in Prabhupada so much. He did what he said. He went to Malad to get the massage because they met one of their relatives or somebody said, oh yeah, you get a massage from this man because my husband had the same problem. And then, okay, so they did that. And in 15 days, he was feeling fine and he didn't need the surgery. And even later, after 1 month, he saw the big orthopedic surgeon who said to him, Shetty, you are living? I thought something must have happened to you. And you were driving the car? This doctor was shocked, and Mr. Shetty told him, what you doctors cannot do, my Guruji did for me. He had full faith in Srila Prabhupada. And Mr. Shetty had a full bungalow made every year in honor of Srila Prabhupada at Banki Bihari Temple in Vrindavan. Now, at Banki Bihari, everything is always booked way in advance because it's a very popular temple. And to get a full bungalow, you have to book like a year or two in advance. But he would do that and have it offered in honor of Srila Prabhupada. I thought that was very nice. And Srila Prabhupada uses Mr. Shetty, or used to use in his lectures, to give an example of what is a Kshatriya. Because before the partition in 1947, Shetty's whole family was from what is now Pakistan, So they had to leave in the partition. And his second son, Brij Mohan, who, as I mentioned, now if you see him, he looks exactly like Mr. Shetty. He was born in 1947. So at the time of partition, he was 8 days old. So Prabhupada uses this story. At the partition, Shetty was walking down alongside the rail, the rail station, and the train had stopped, and a train had just pulled in. And some hooligans walked with machetes. 3 guys with machetes walked down, just didn't know him from Adam, but just saw that he was what religion he is, and wanted to kill him. They would try to kill him. And Shetty just took his sword and lopped off the head of the first assailant, and his headless body went walking a few feet and then fell over. And the other 2, when they saw that, they just ran away in fear. And so Prabhupada uses that. Prabhupada said, this is a Kshatriya. So Prabhupada uses him as an example of what is a Kshatriya. This is Mr. P.L. Shetty we're talking about, who lived here and was a big assistance in building this temple. Mr. Shetty used to drive Prabhupada from these quarters. Well, he was in the BBT building, which is one of the old buildings here. Were you here before they tore them down? We had the old buildings on the property where the new, so Prabhupada was staying actually, let's see where we are now. Prabhupada was staying in the BBT building. So one time, Mr. Shetty was ill. He had been ill for 3 days, and he couldn't come to the mandir. So Mr. Shetty he told me this. I said to my wife, why isn't he asking someone to call and inquire about me? So Mr. Shetty said that. And then right after that, someone knocked on the door. And Shetty says, when I answered it, it was Srila Prabhupada himself. I said, Guruji, up. And Prabhupada replied, why are you so surprised? You were wanting me to come, and now I have come. You thought that no one is caring, so I came myself. This temple, and also I think because Shetty built onto the existing buildings another story so the devotees could live. So when you build in Bombay, you have to deal with the BMC, the Bombay Municipal Corporation. Okay, so Mr. Shetty was going there, dealing with permits to build, etc., and he was getting a ton of hindrances, And so he went to Prabhupada, and he was like crying, I was saying, Prabhupada, I never had these difficulties before when I'm working on so many projects, because he was a contractor. So I never have difficulties like this. And Srila Prabhupada just looked at him and said, do you think that to build the Lord's temple is the same as what you were building before? This is completely different, and Krishna is testing you. Shetty died several years ago, but before he passed, they were building this new guest house that we have here at Juhu. And the devotees had some scheme going that if you donate for one of the rooms, then your family can stay in that room for 1 month out of the whole year, every year, for 1 month. So Shetty's family donated for 3 rooms, but Mr. Shetty told them, he said, my family is never going to stay here. So what I would like you to do is you take any income that you get for that month that we were supposed to have been allotted, you take that income, and I would like that to go to Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja and Disappearance Day celebrations. So he also gave a fixed deposit for that purpose. Because when Mr. Shetty was alive, whenever he would always come to Prabhupada's Disappearance and Appearance Day. And his wife told me, whenever he goes, I always put an extra hanky in his pocket because he cries more for Prabhupada than he did for his own father. Because Mr. Shetty would always be crying, telling stories and crying, So now, these years, after he has given the fixed deposit for such a wonderful, Vyasa Puja and Disappearance Day. So in the beginning, the temple was offering about 108 preparations. And then it grew to 1,008. And even after that, they had 1,500 preparations, so many preparations, you know, for Prabhupada's appearance and disappearance. And then towards the end, when Mr. Shetty passed, he was very ill in the hospital, and he told his family, "Get me out of this hospital, take me home, I don't want to die in the hospital." So they brought him home, and he requested to see the deities at the temple. He said, "I want to go see the deities at the temple." And, you know, they told him, you know, you're so ill, it's very difficult to move you because we don't want to injure you further. You're so frail, you know. But what happened, so they got an ambulance. By the time they got the ambulance, Mr. Shetty already went into a coma. Still, they brought him to the temple because that had been his desire. So they brought him in front of the deities for darshan. And they put him in a wheelchair, you know, and brought him in front of their lordships. Shri Shri Radha Rasa Bihari, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Gornitai, like that. And amazingly, as soon as he was in front of the deities, his eyes opened, the coma was gone, and he was clapping, you know, like that. And then they took him away, and as soon as they took him away, he went into the coma again, and they brought him home. And of course, there were lots of devotees there chanting. Because the Shetty family was so loving, they gave so much love, and they loved Prabhupada so much, that they had said that devotees should, if ever any devotee is staying in the temple and has some problem, they should come and stay at our house for a while. That's how loving they were, you know, invited all the devotees to come to them. Or if anybody's too sick, just send them to our house and we'll take care of them, you know. That's how nice they were. I wanted to mention, and then I wanted to mention Sumathi Morarji also, because while I was living at Juhu, she was living at Juhu, and I wanted to write about her, so I interviewed her. I saw her, went to her house several times, and she talked to me. She was a very sweet lady, very nice lady. And she gave me a tour of her house, and her house was, they had these, pardon me, about 20 foot wide, you know, long corridors along the whole, at least I saw it down two sides of the house. And it was a big house, a bungalow type, but huge and ornate, you know, fancy. And down the corridors, and there's windows along too. It was like a museum, because they would have like a huge, 6-8 foot Nataraj. They would have Indian artifacts, statues that were like hundreds of years old. Same thing you would see in the National Museum, you know, these priceless, you know, items. And then she took me where her deities were. And her deities, she had 150 or 250 or 300, I don't know how many shilas, shalagram shilas. And she had them she had like 2 rooms full, at least this big or bigger, full of shilas. And she had a full-time priest who took care of them and chanted all day long, and it was a very nice setup that she had for them. And also, Mataji would be talking to her shilas all the time, finding out how they were, are they comfortable, and she would tell them, you know, what she's doing and what her plans are, and ask for their blessings. And she had very nice beds for them all. Means like not maybe a wooden bed, but like coverlets and things for them, pillows and things for them to lie on. And she took very good care of her shilas. And I loved it to hear her talking to them, you know, talking to her shilas. And Sumathi Morarji was the vice president of the Srinathji temple in Rajasthan at Nathadwar, which was probably, at that time, probably still is the second richest temple in India after Tirupati, you know. And so she was the vice president, which means she told me, yeah, I go there just about every weekend. I take a private plane and I fly up there, so it doesn't take too long. And so she was like a remarkable person. I mean, what can you say? She told me, I missed Prabhupada I miss him most, Swamiji, I think she called him. I miss Swamiji mostly in the evening at sunset, because that's the time that he would come to my house. You know, she says, so I'm missing him at sunset. And Sumathi Morarji, we're talking about. You know. Okay, I mean, utility is the principle. So whatever comes up in the future, who knows? I mean, who even knew? 30 years ago, we couldn't have dreamed of the internet. And then, because I remember I was here at Juhu when it started, and we used to call it, what did we used to call it? .com. I'm going on .com. That's how they called it when it first started, you know. And then, so I mean, yeah, who knows what's going to happen in 50 years or 100? We can't even imagine. So yeah, but utility is the principle. That was one of Prabhupada's 4, you know, pillars that he went by. So utility is the principle means you do the needful and you use what you can in Krishna's service. So absolutely, whatever ways that devotees can come up with to get people to hear Krishna, it's like, please do it. You know, so yes, I'm quite certain that Srila Prabhupada would be very open and very appreciative and happy to have people, you know, like one time he even went, you know, Prabhupada, they were in London, and they said, geez, Prabhupada, you know, they want us to go to Holland. It's a whole other country. They want us to, just for, you can be on, you know, for a few minutes on TV. What do you think, you know? And Prabhupada said, yes, we should do it. He said, I can explain all of the philosophy in 3 minutes, you know, and we'll get some of his. So they, but the TV station was flying. They flew 9 devotees from, this is explained in His Holiness Mukunda Maharaj's book. He goes into it in detail. They flew 9 devotees from Heathrow to Schiphol, the Amsterdam airport, and then they went to the station, and I think that's the place where they had they were going to have some go-go dancers dancing behind the devotees, but the devotees dressed them up in saris and showed them how to dance nicely. And then, so Prabhupada explained the philosophy succinctly in just a few, you know. So yeah, I mean, Prabhupada was definitely, whatever you can do, that's the practical thing, to get Krishna's name to enter people's hearts. You do it. You know, if you can do anything, do it. It's a mystical process. You know, if you can't become fire unless you touch the fire. So we want to get that the fire of Krishna consciousness in people's hearts, and then it can grow, you know, to a conflagration, and Krishna consciousness can spread. But look how nicely things are going these days in China, very nicely. They didn't want, the Chinese government, you know, communism, they didn't want, even a few years ago, they didn't want anything religious, but they were open-armed about having the Festival of India people, you know, Festival of India, or people that, like my friend Atmarama, he's, do you know him, the devotee? He makes CDs and he sings Hare Krishna, but very, with the guitar and stuff, very beautiful. And so he went there and performed, and they loved it. And they had some dancers, Bharatanatyam, Indian classical dancers with him, and the Chinese government loved it. So, you know, any way that you can. So now, I mean, now China is like opening up, and it'll be a wonderful country. And look how Russia, they probably have more devotees in Russia now than they have anywhere in the West, I think. So, so it's like, you know, one time they asked Prabhupada something to the gist of, you know, what can we really do to make you happy? And some of the book distributors, you know, they thought, oh, he's going to say distribute books. You know, they're feeling like that. But Prabhupada didn't say that. What can we do to really make you happy? And Prabhupada said, just try to love Krishna. Just learn to love Krishna. Actually develop some love in your hearts. That's what you can do, and that'll make me happy. That'll make me most happy. You know? So, if you have a means of getting people to hear about Krishna so that they can learn to love him, I feel that Prabhupada would have been, very much on board with that idea. So I think that that's what I wanted to say about, so anyway, I feel this temple, it's the most beautiful temple on the planet. For me, it's the best temple in the world. And I love this temple. And I'm just so grateful, that Prabhupada gave us Juhu. It's a very, very important and crucial history, the Juhu history, because it shows how Prabhupada didn't stand for any nonsense and demoniac nonsense, and how Krishna also intervened to help his pure devotee. It's an amazing pastime. And this temple is living proof of that, so of Radharasa Bihari's mercy and of Srila Prabhupada's determination and the gift that he gave us in order to please his Guru Maharaj and please Lord Chaitanya. So I feel very, very grateful and honored to have been able to live here for 5 years, and I hope to live here in the future too. So thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.